All right, welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I am your host, Marcus Blake, and joined with me, as always, is the brewing sailor, Mr. Brendan Smith.
Good morning, nerds.
Mr. Chad Womack from the Electric Jellyfish Podcast.
Salutations.
And we've got Jimmy Alford back with us.
Hadley doodly, neighborinos.
All right, we just want to let our audience know he is not Bob Villa. He is not going to be building something in the background.
Not today.
All right, so this week's show, and we're going to kind of jump into it, is about the second half of Summer Blockbuster movies. Which one has turned out to be the best? And we're going to talk about some massive failures, actually, ironically, both by Lionsgate, including one that is a remake of a movie that nobody asked for. And we're not at all surprised why it's failing, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. All right. But before we get to it, we're going to do a little bit of gaming news this week. And if you are a gamer and you like Star Wars games, Star Wars Outlaws by Ubisoft is officially out. And this is the first Star Wars game to come out that is not licensed by EA. So it's also the first open world Star Wars game. Now, you might think that is a great thing. And yes, Star Wars open world game is kind of cool. But this is also Ubisoft that we're talking about. So let's just dive into the fact that it's a very, very Ubisoft game, and the fact that in the first 2 weeks, you're going to have to deal with massive bugs and trying to understand a story that doesn't really make sense set in a time with legacy characters, because this game is set literally right after the Battle of Yavin and the destruction of the first Death Star. So not going to go into everything about it. I will be quick about this game. Let me be the first to say, you do not need to spend $70 on this game at all. Do not waste your money. And you certainly do not need to spend over $100 to get pre-bonus material or have played it 3 days in advance. Not worth it. Not worth it at all. It's a very middle of the road Star Wars game. It is kind of fun. It's cool. You know, a character that's very Han Solo-esque, you know, doing jobs in the underworld and dealing with the Pikes and the, you know, Crimson Dawn and the Hutts and blah, blah, blah. But the best way that I can describe this video game, yeah, it's a Far Cry game. It's a Far Cry game with a Star Wars skin. Essentially, it's Far Cry 7, if you really literally want to get legit. And by saying that, I am making the three of you really, really want to play this game, aren't I?
No, you're making
really no.
make me want to punch myself in the crotch and take that less painful option.
Okay, all right.
I mean, for $70, if you paid me $70, I'd sure.
So
I would put some hours into it. Yeah.
So first of all, I've got to call out, like, all right, at that nerd show, we try to be very fair with our reviews. We're gonna praise where it's worthy. We're gonna, you know, Marcus has said it's kind of a middle of the road game. It's got some good stuff. It's got some bad stuff. Okay, I want to read you the headline from PC Gamer's review.
Yeah.
Star Wars Outlaw, a Star Wars game has been. First of all, I would like to know how much Lucasfilm paid them for that, because no, not even by a long shot. We can talk about both Knights of the Old Republic games. We can talk about Star Wars The Old Republic, Star Wars Galaxies, the Jedi Knight Dark Forces games, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, The Force Unleashed. The list goes on and on and on. But also, they gave it a 73 out of 100.
Yeah.
The best Star Wars game ever got a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. That's your... That's the line right there.
I think Masters of Terras Kasi might be a more Star Wars game than...
So,
yeah.
If you think that corporate reviewers or, you know, larger outlets or whatever don't get paid for the reviews or are heavily influenced, you would be wrong. We are, you know, we're not ashamed to say it. We're a smaller outlet, you know, we're fans and all that, but we don't shy away from the truth. Being part of a, you know, Professional Critics Association, we don't get paid for our reviews. We certainly, you know, don't get bribed because that's exactly what it is.
So Marcus, I am curious as
I
to
kind of
the.
wish they would bribe me.
Yeah, I
I
am
need
curious as to the going rate on journalistic integrity. I'd like to know. I'd at least like to be offered. Give me the opportunity to turn it down.
I will tell you where the line is for me. Whatever amount of zeros that you're putting in that bribe, go ahead and add 3 more. Let's just put it right out there. If it's really that important to you, 3 more is my line.
Especially coming from Disney and Ubisoft, they got the cash to spend. I'm just saying.
All right.
I don't know. All the conspiracy theorists out there who always say, "Oh, the media is all this, that, and the other." It's like, man, who has that much money and influence? I mean, come on.
Here's the thing with the game: getting past all the bugs and all that, you're basically a young girl, like I said, who's very Han Solo-esque and trying to navigate the underworld as like a smuggler and on missions and trying to find a better life for herself and blah 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 blah. The problem is we don't care about this character. There's no vested interest in this character. She's not having anything to do with legacy characters at a time when all the big legacy characters are around. I feel like this story would have been much better as a Han Solo adventure, during his smuggling days leading up to the rebellion, or maybe even like a side mission, before, in between episode 4 and episode 5. So let me ask you this. Would you guys be more interested in actually playing a Han Solo stealth, type game? Wouldn't it be better if you actually got to play a character that we all like?
I'd been fine if it was Dash Rendar, for Christ's sakes.
Or you know what? Here's a thought. Since you make it, since it's an open world game, you give it some role play elements, and you do what KOTOR did and let the protagonist choose what they want to be.
Ding, 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 ding.
You want to play a girl? Great, play a girl. You want to play a guy? Great, play a guy. You're a girl who wants to play a guy. You're a guy who wants to play a girl. Fantastic. Do whatever the hell you want, because it's a role-playing game and it's open world. And you give it. And by the way, also Ubisoft, stop saying that it's the first open world Star Wars game, because it's not. Because Star Wars Galaxies had 16 open worlds that were freaking 16 kilometers by 16 kilometers wide, and it's bigger than anything you've ever done. So please stop pushing that narrative, you lying sacks of shit. Moving on.
Also, I would argue that it's not open world.
So thank you, Brendan.
I would argue that it's not an open worlds game. No matter, just because the map's big doesn't mean it's open worlds. If you are locked into a storyline, if you're locked into a certain style,
if you hit invisible walls,
that's what I'm saying. If you are locked into a certain way you play, it's not open worlds. It's just like any other first-person shooter. I mean, it might as well be Halo.
Right. And I basically say that this is a Far Cry game with some elements of Tomb Raider. I don't necessarily think that's a bad game. I love the Tomb Raider games. I've loved most of the Far Cry games. But one of the things that Battlefront 2 did very well with their campaign, and Battlefront 2 is the game that we actually should have gotten in 2015. Okay. I always like to tell this story that when I got review copies, I had 1 copy of Battlefront and 1 copy of Fallout 4. And when I asked Brendan which one he wanted, I didn't even finish the sentence and he took Fallout 4. He automatically knew. and he was the better for it. Having a campaign and some DLC that actually connected to the movies, and you actually played with legacy characters on different adventures, and you introduced a character that, defected from the Empire and has a wonderful story. Yeah, that worked. I've played that campaign numerous times. This one, it's just like, I don't care about the character. Okay, I'm essentially going on missions and having some fun stuff and whatever. But it's also very hard when your stealth mode is kind of broken. When there are certain missions that have to be completely stealth, and it's hard to sneak up and knock out characters, or too many guards are nearby, and it's impossible. So sometimes you have to blast your way out. But then again, it can be fun when you're having to sneak around a space station and make a jailbreak of another character. But at the end of the day, the final onslaught is having it out with the Empire to escape. It's just too middle of the road. There was so much potential with this idea that Ubisoft kind of missed the boat. again, I'm not saying it's absolutely terrible, but it's just one of those games that you'll play and pick up when it's heavily discounted. Like, I like Star Wars, and I kind of like the format of what Ubisoft does in video games, but I'm not going to spend a lot of money to do this. And, you know, for less than $30, you're going to get your money's worth in about a 20 to 25-hour campaign. So, and I actually happen to agree with IGN in their review this week. You basically are making a Han Solo-like character where all you're making us want to do is play Han Solo on one of his adventures. Congratulations, Ubisoft.
Yeah, I mean,
that we don't really care about.
I don't know. We'll see what happens in future games, but man, I don't have much faith in anything. First of all, I have no faith that half of the Star Wars games in development are actually going to come to fruition.
I mean,
just because, I mean, let's look at the track record of the last 10 years.
I will still give this game sits at about a 6 or a 7. I've enjoyed the game a lot more as I've progressed, but I will never say that it's a good game. Now, if you really wanted to truly make an open world game with lots of missions, it was rumored, or maybe it's still in development, that they were going to give us a Mandalorian game. If you built that game where you could have a squad of Mandalorians and you treated it like a Tom Clancy game, where you could have a squad of 4, I would play the shit out of that. Chad, would you jump into a game like that?
Most likely.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to give me Tom Clancy Breakpoint or Wildlands, but in a Star Wars universe with Mandalorians, give me that. That's awesome. So, all right.
Well, I will say this too. And if you don't want to give us a game that you're going to pay to have the legacy character, because, you know, they all had to license from Disney, and I'm sure it's a licensing thing. It's the reason why they didn't make it a Han Solo game. Disney probably said, nah. Maybe pick something within the Star Wars universe that's a little bit more original. You know, maybe cut your own path a little bit. I mean, come on.
That's fine.
It's not going to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, that has Kathy Kennedy written all over it, though. A female Han Solo. Come on.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to be. That guy who got the show canceled. You know.
No. I mean, look. I mean, we're not misogynists. We love good, strong female characters and everything. We just don't need them crammed down our throat like it's the end all of end all. Like, these are the only characters we can.
There are so many good female characters out there that have done, like, even recently. Like, well, you and I went to see Atomic Blonde. That was awesome.
Yeah,
like, you can make a good female character, but like some of the takedowns too, they looked like the actress. She's a British Indian actress. She was in Kenobi. When she like slaps the stormtrooper in the head, and Kenobi was like, "Okay, nobody's buying that."
Bishar, whatever. Yeah, she was.
I forget her name, but India Varma, I think is her name.
Yeah, thank you.
And I mean, absolutely stunning woman, don't get me wrong, and a fantastic actress. But yeah, I mean, when she just slaps the stormtrooper in the head and he just like falls over, I mean, come on.
Well, I do agree. I think a lot of that expects us to like ignore physics, and I know that in certain universes you can do that, but even like there's only so much suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah. I mean, because within the same universe, you had, you know, that scene and Mandalorian and in Mandalorian season 2, which gets overshadowed because of Luke, but you had the scene with Cara Dune and Fennec Shan and Bo-Katan, and I forget the other Mandalorian's name who was with Bo-Katan, but you had the 4 of those ladies tearing up stormtroopers and that was completely believable because we have seen their development as characters and we know that they're badass, and Ming-Na Wen's just Ming-Na Wen.
Also proving that what Kathleen Kennedy and her cronies would have us believe about the Alkalite, that we just don't like strong female characters. No, we just like well-written strong female characters, like these 4 badasses.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd rather have a show about them on adventures. Yeah. Also, I'm going to say this. I've always been a fan of Katie Sackhoff in anything that she's ever done. she has been a badass in anything that she's ever done. So, oh well.
Wait, real quick.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that speaking of video games, I think it's going to be really interesting since most video games take like between 5 and 10 years to develop before they ever get to us. I think it's going to be really interesting in the next 3 to 5 years to see what video games are going to truly be like because of all the AI that's being pumped into that industry right now.
Yeah.
I think in about 5 years, we're either going to get a ton of really good games or we're going to get a ton of just utter shit show games. And I don't think we're going to have a middle ground.
No, I mean, I feel like we're kind of at that point now. There's like games that I start like, yeah, I can't. It's just I have no interest in doing this. I made a comment because I've been playing the Rise of the Ronin, and I was like, this is like the GoBots version of Ghost of Tsushima. Tsushima. It's a fun game or whatever, but not worth $60. It's kind of cool. Whatever, but Ghost of Tsushima is such an incredible story, and the fact that you have two different choices of whether you let the guy live or not. I mean, Chad, that's been one of your favorite games over the last 10 years.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought I would be playing an interactive Kurosawa film. It was breathtaking.
Right, but finding those kinds of games where you just absolutely dive into and love everything about it. I mean, it's getting a lot harder stuff. So, but we'll see.
It's usually from independent developers because they don't have some massive corporation breathing down their neck trying to appease their investors. And it's got to release this quarter. It doesn't matter if it's done or not. Because look what happened with Larian with Baldur's Gate 3, and then Hasbro and WotC tried to tell them what they were going to do going forward with Baldur's Gate, and Larian went, nah, we're good.
That if you've ever watched the story of the Xbox, the Power On documentary that came out a few years ago, the 20th anniversary, that was one of the best things that Microsoft ever did was take a whole nother year to develop Halo 2 before they released it. Despite people crying, we've got to release it, it's been too long, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, take the time to develop it. And Halo 2, when it was released, was incredible.
Like the cook said in Master and Commander, it'll be ready when it's ready.
Okay. That was always Ed Software's edict on everything they were working on. It'll be done when it's done.
All right, look. I know y'all are coming from a good place, but as a Half-Life fan, I feel like all of y'all are just a little too optimistic. Just saying.
Well,
just saying.
That's because
I waited 10 years or longer, and I got Alex 2, the VR game that I couldn't play.
Because Valve's never going to do Half-Life 3 because they don't need to.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to talking about the second half of Summer Blockbusters. So we're just going to jump into probably what has been the best movie of the summer, Deadpool and Wolverine. So let me ask this question. It may be rhetorical, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did this movie exceed your expectations? Did it meet or exceed your expectations for a superhero movie? Brendan?
I'm going to say it met.
Really?
Because
you can't say exceed. You can't.
No, because it didn't. And look, and meeting my expectations is not a bad thing. I had high expectations, but here's the thing. Like anytime you get into the TVA, start talking about the TVA, my eyes gloss over. So I had to get past the first 30 minutes. Although it was really nice and cathartic seeing him kill a bunch of TVA agents with Logan's skeleton. Also, the irreverence was perfect, especially when juxtaposed against In Sync or whoever the hell it was. In Sync, 98 Degrees, Backstreet Boys, they all sounded the same to me back then. They still sound the same.
All created by the same guy who went to jail for a Ponzi scheme. So sure, yeah.
And I'm sure that wasn't the only thing he's done wrong. We're just going to leave it at that. He created a bunch of boy bands. I'm just saying.
He might have liked prison way too much.
or prison like Tim. Hey, but so moving on. But yeah, I look. It was a very, very entertaining, very good movie. It's certainly better than anything Marvel's put out since Endgame. However, I'd be lying if I say I didn't like Deadpool 1 and 2 better. But that doesn't mean it was bad. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. I just don't think it exceeded my expectations.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Chad, you and I talked about it for almost an hour and everything. Met your expectations?
It went above my expectations, yes.
Okay.
Because it gave me some of the things that where I was like, okay, if this happens, I'm kind of in Brendan's camp a little bit, where like, okay, you delivered. Thank you for that. Because think about it, Marcus. I mean, like here, the bar up here is like Brendan said, Endgame, Logan, the first Deadpool. These things have been established. So you've set a really high bar, and then you've consistently given us shit for the most part in this past phase.
But I'm different where it does exceed my expectations considering what we've got. Like I know that Ryan Reynolds delivers, but I can't always trust Disney to do the right, to not put out something that shit. I don't know if I consider it less of a movie compared to Deadpool 1 and 2, and I haven't really thought about it that much. But compared to what we've got, oh yeah, exceeded all my expectations, because I was like, I feel like I've said this before, that there are two versions of movies that they make at Disney. The one that we know is going to be good, and then the one that they have to put up that's going to put out that they think is going to make everybody happy, but really is shit. So, like, what version were we going to get on that? In this case, it was
when you put the bar on the floor,
right,
and you jump over the bar. Oh,
but in this case, I feel like the one that they feel like Disney would be happy with is the one they showed everybody, and then they secret released the movie they really made, which is the one that we saw, and Disney couldn't pull it out of theaters. Like shit.
Yeah. I mean, to Chad's point, Marvel recently and Disney as a whole has set the bar so low that Joe Walsh could have stumbled over it in the dark at 4 a.m. when he was trying to find the door. And I know I'm dating myself with that reference, and I don't care.
That's a good reference, though, brother.
Wow.
Yeah, cheers.
Jimmy, how about you? Meet your expectations, exceed them?
Okay, it exceeds them, but not quite for the same reason, maybe, for the rest of you. So here's the deal. Big fan of the first Deadpool movie. Second one, I liked a little bit less. This one exceeded my expectations because it is a threequel. It's the third sequel, right? So I was like, quality problem, right? It was great. It was exactly what I needed, exactly what we all expected, right? But here's my caveat. I think one of the real reasons why everyone loves the Deadpool movies is for the fact that it's a Marvel Universe movie that stands by itself. It doesn't have to have this overarching theme. There were no other movies that have to support it. It's a fun movie.
Yet it might launch 3 more.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, unlike the Captain America movie or unlike whatever, it doesn't need to be propped up by anything else. It can stand by itself. Even this third sequel can stand by itself. It references all these other movies and everything. That's part of its charm too, because it's also like, it's self-effacing. It's self-aware, whatever. So it does work.
Yeah.
So I think unfortunately, I do think that one of the reasons why Deadpool works so well is literally because and I sent you a text about this the other day, Marcus, we seem to be stuck in this genre atmosphere where everything has to have this overarching, narrative. And we just like with the 3 or 4 hour movie, which I complain about like every time we get on here. It makes me cry. We don't need it. We don't need it. So anyway,
yeah, Kevin Costner.
In general, I like it.
In your great epic westerns.
Oh my god, it's like, oh my, just give me open range. I wanted open range. What was
Which I just watched that not too long ago. Basically, when Horizon dropped on Max, finally for streaming, I'd already seen it. Like, I'm not going to go to it again. Oh, open range is free on such and such. I'll watch that because I could throw that in the background, and I'm like,
and that came out 20 years ago.
Yeah, that movie is as perfect as you can get in a western of a great cast, great speeches, great fights. You know,
it follows the formula.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with having a formula, especially when you're making a movie that is supposed to appeal to a certain genre, a certain audience. Nothing wrong with that.
And you know what?
Come on.
Here, I think the main reason that Deadpool and Wolverine succeed is it gives us the fan service that we all really want.
Oh, well, sure.
By also telling a great story within a multiverse. Love or hate the multiverse, at least you kind of have this great story that connects to other characters. Love or hate them.
Hey, at least it didn't have the smartest man in Marvel act like an idiot and get himself killed.
Well,
that's a plus over some other multiverse movies. Let's just throw that out there.
Well, let's also just recognize the fact it is an R-rated superhero movie, which they honestly need to make more of.
There's like 1.3 billion reasons why they should do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And one other movie they made this summer that flopped, that should have been R-rated, I know we're going to talk about it, it wasn't, was utterly disappointing.
I know.
So, sorry.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think part of, again, with Deadpool and Wolverine is you did everything that we wanted with a superhero movie. Okay, even breaking the fourth wall and all that, you gave us everything that we wanted in the last 5 years. That for some reason you can't give us, while you can't figure out phase 4 or 5 or whatever the hell phase that we're in at this point, to where we
five's almost over.
Yeah, we don't even care about the next Avengers movie to the point. And I'm not even going to get into Robert Downey Jr. being, Victor Von Doom and the next Fantastic. Like, we'll debate. Well, no, we're not going to do it tonight, but we'll debate that another time.
I have deep-seated feelings about that.
Well, like I said, my only point is you gave us everything that we needed to be entertained. Ryan Reynolds was at his best, and Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine was epic, fucking badass.
A jacked Wolverine
till you're 90.
Yeah,
till you're 90.
I know. And the best part, I said this kind of after seeing the movie. For years, we have ragged on Channing Tatum, okay, for being in nerd movies. And for good reason, because he sucked in G.I. Joe. And it's because of that, I had no desire to see him as Ganon. Like, no. So I want to apologize. I was wrong. You made me want to see you Channing Tatum in a Gambit movie now. I'm like, give me that movie.
Okay. On Channing Tatum, though, I think the word's been out on him being a just truly fantastic comedy actor.
Yeah.
For a lot, because he was in what was that Seth Rogen movie, The End?
Yeah.
And in that movie, and it was like, oh my God, that's G.I. Joe. And he's a freaking gimp. But it was hilarious. And the fact that he was willing to do that, and that wasn't too far after the whole G.I. Joe. And like, he was still like star status.
I've got nothing against the guy or anything like that. I just think he's been miscast in certain movies.
Lot. Yeah. So I will say this. I'm with Marcus on this one. I'm actually rooting for Channing Tatum now. I've done a 180 on the guy. I don't know if he's changed or my opinion of him has changed or something that maybe a little bit of both there. But I definitely would like to see him actually, get his Gambit movie. And in fact, I'm to the point where there's only one actor they could cast as Gambit where I'd be like, okay, like, all right, it sucks that he didn't get his movie, but he got at least got his one time as, you know, during Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's Austin Butler. I think Austin Butler would be a phenomenal Gambit. But
yeah.
And I've recently flip-flopped on him too, because I really didn't like him after the Shannara Chronicles, but damn, he grew up and he was awesome in Masters of the Air. So
God, he was.
Yeah. So
I mean, the magnetism of just like coming off the screens, like he was great in Dune Part 2. I hated his Elvis movie, but he was good as Elvis.
Yeah,
that's the thing. And the Bike Riders movie, while that was kind of subpar, I'm like, God damn, I kind of want to see you do a Sons of Anarchy spinoff now, because everything you're doing is awesome. I mean, what's your next role? Are you going to be a Top Gun fighter pilot? Which now I can actually see.
I feel like we're just like talking about the fact that there are good actors out there who just get stuck in really badly written movies like G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just saying, I feel like that's what this is really
and
about.
Hasbro's about to screw that up all over again.
Oh my God, I know.
Yeah.
Hey, I like the second G.I. Joe movie, mostly because The Rock took over. And he was an awesome roadblock. I will give him that. So the best parts about this movie, besides Ryan Reynolds just basically being Ryan Reynolds and breaking the fourth wall, I honestly feel like the cameos made this movie. Chris Evans coming back and being Johnny Storm.
I think the part that sold it was that even Deadpool didn't see it coming. He thought it was Cap. Like, go get him, Cap. And then all of a sudden he goes flame on, and we're all like, huh, what?
No.
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes back as Blade, and even the little line in there that he is the only Blade. I'm like, I feel like that's true at this point.
I clapped.
Yeah,
I clapped. I was just like,
yeah. Just look. It's like you're calling Disney out on their bullshit.
And then the first thing he did was, after the big weekend, Ryan Reynolds gets out and he tweets out for Channing Tatum to get his own Gambit movie, and he tweets out for Blade to get his own Logan type, Wesley Snipes to get his own Logan type Blade send off, which I think was awesome that he did that.
Yeah, and who's not wanting that at this point? Like, please, here's my money.
So
I mean, because here's the deal: Blade was, my era, the early 2000s high schoolers.
Yeah,
it was the best comic book movie that came out in
Blade 2 was probably I was peak Blade. I mean, you put him with Norman Reedus and freaking Guillermo del Toro, and it was awesome. Yeah. That was such a great film.
And that was just like a who's who of who's going to be just freaking astronomically good in the next 15. That movie right there, like almost.
Well, because you kind of look at like Norman Reedus' trajectory. Boondock Saints, Blade 2. He did that with Stephen Dorff, that kind of street gang movie. I'm drawing a blank on the name, something about cards or something, where he was kind of cool. And he did a lot before he finally, kind of exploded with The Walking Dead, and is still a badass. So but yeah, just give us a Wesley Snipes Blade movie and be done with trying to bring in a new Blade. Come on. It's never going to happen. And nothing against Marshawn Ali. It's not going to happen, dude. Go on to something that's going to win you another Oscar.
Just saying, as a fan, as a Hugh Jackman fan, as a Hugh Jackman is Wolverine fan, you can still make, even though he's getting older, more good Wolverine movies, because the old Wolverine storyline, they have done that there are so many great arcs that have like really old Wolverine, like in the far distant future.
Old Man Logan. They even showed Old Man Logan in the montage.
Even further beyond that, like they have all these like like Wolverine and the Hulk, like killing the Hulk type, like those type of movies, and that could be done so fantastic.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Speaking of like movies that could come back or whatever, is anybody like me where now you want another Jennifer Garner Electro movie?
No.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, my crush on Jennifer Gardner it just take.
I'll take another Catwoman movie. Yeah, I'll even take the basketball scene.
Oh, Morena Baccarin wants to play Catwoman, and I'm just like, oh, please let her.
Yeah,
please let her.
Yeah, I won't say no to that either. But
I have one final word I want to say in regards to Deadpool versus Wolverine. Gubernatorial.
Overall, this movie was incredible. Again, gave us everything that we wanted. I did like Cassandra Nova. I mean, even if she wasn't the greatest villain, but I thought that she did kind of the actress did a great job with it. Emma Cohen or Corrin, and I kind of would actually have loved to see more stories with her. The TVA, and I mean, they didn't really have a great villain per se, but it didn't matter.
But none of the Deadpool movies really have like what I would call villains.
It's not so much. It's not so much them as it is just Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. But having,
you have to have you need to have B-list villains for Deadpool to fight. Otherwise, he can't. He has to be serious, and that would kill the movie.
I think also the most important thing is the Backstreet Boys song. Being able to play that and give some of the other members who aren't doing much some money from Deadpool is also important because
Backstreet Boys song.
Is it Back? Oh no, NSYNC. Sorry, again. The NSYNC.
Oh, okay, yeah. Bye. That's
bye. The one that your niece makes that awesome metal video that I'm very excited about now. So thank you, Chad. Let's give her a shout out. What's her name?
Larry Noel is the name of the band that she's. I mean, that's her first and middle name. Known the kid since birth, and and they've got originals, but they go viral with the covers that they do. And last year they did a cover of This Is Halloween from Nightmare Before Christmas that got like about 1 million views on YouTube, and she just blew up.
Right. So
she's got some really good stuff that's both originals and covers. Her covers are amazing, but her originals are just as powerful.
Right. So, well, Deadpool, Wolverine, probably we'll get to it in a moment, but I mean, it's the Marvel movie we really truly needed after 5 years of just crap. So
it was a definite palate cleanser.
Yeah. All right. Real quick. Do a final grade on it. I give the movie a 9. I didn't say it's absolutely perfect, but I do give it a 9 just because I loved it. Jimmy, how about you?
Oh, I mean, it's 8.5, 9. I mean, it's right in there. There's really, I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I can't argue.
And Chad, how about you?
Same thing.
All right. Brendan?
Yeah, I'll give it an 8.
Gonna be different because he always has to be. All right. That is perfectly fine. All right. The next movie that we want to move on to, we are going to talk about one bad movie that, again, Borderlands. I appreciate the fact that somebody wanted to make a Borderlands movie, yes, it should definitely have been a movie. But how can you make a Borderlands movie that's not rated R? Seriously? Have you not played the games? Do you not understand the feel of playing the games?
I feel like the only reason they made the movie is because they have Borderlands 4 coming out next year.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we got to have a movie, pump up the sales.
Well, it might feel that way, but this thing was in development hell for like a decade.
Yeah.
It's gone through multiple directors, multiple writers, and it shows. And then they lacked a fundamental understanding. I mean, you cast a 55-year-old woman to play a 28-year-old character. You cast a 65-year-old woman to play a 33-year-old character.
All right.
I mean, look, nobody's casting me to be the next, hero in anything because I'm 46 and fat. Okay.
They could probably cast one of us as Dilbert if he ever got a movie.
Fair.
Or Ziggy.
Okay. So
or Ziggy. Yeah.
here's my take on it. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Okay. You should have found younger actresses for these roles. But I will also say that Kate Blanchett completely surprised me as Lilith to the fact that I thought she did a good job. I liked her. Is she the best choice? No. But she wasn't so horrible that it's unbearable to watch.
She was the least of my concerns. She was the absolute least of my.
Now,
but she's a good actress. That's the thing. She's a good actress.
Yeah.
Like you can put a good actor or a good actress in almost any role and they'll do a decent job, even if the movie sucks, even if the writing sucks, because they know what they're doing.
Well, and I agree. Kevin Hart as Roland.
No.
I don't even. Where did that come from? I like Kevin Hart. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Kevin Hart. I'm sorry. If it's. He has to have a buddy. He's only good in buddy movies.
He's a sidekick. Yeah.
He's straight up a sidekick. He can't play up.
You are not going to be the hero.
No, he's not a friend.
I like Kevin Hart. He is funny. I loved him in the Jumanji movies with The Rock. Great chemistry. Awesome. I do not believe you as some kind of super soldier at all 5'2".
About 40. But
okay.
How do you cast him as Roland when Terry Crews is right there?
Yeah, thank you. And if you think
I don't know,
Terry Crews can't be funny, you've never watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
But Terry Crews is hilarious. He's got an infectious personality. He's jacked. He actually looks like Roland. It's like the perfect casting. But no, we went with Kevin Hart because funny.
Popular. I'm not sure if he's not more popular.
And honestly, in an ensemble film, he fits better because you don't need for an ensemble. You don't need everybody to be A-list. Hell, in Lord of the Rings, the only A-lister was Ian McClellan. Everybody else, was people on the verge of stardom or character actors, so.
Well, Elijah Wood, he was I guess he was considered A-list at the time. Yeah, Elijah Wood had several big hits at that time.
But I wouldn't. Nobody's putting him on the.
Yeah, Elijah.
I wouldn't. Nobody's putting him on the. Nobody's putting up there with Cruise or Pitt or Clooney. In the late 1990s, early 2000s.
Oh,
so you don't need all of these people to be the top tier. Just get a good cast of people together that fit the roles and that will have good chemistry together.
Yeah. I am not an absolute hater on this movie. I don't think it's a 2 or a 3 or anything like that. I just think it's more of a missed opportunity. I gave it a 5. It's a very average movie. To me, the biggest problem is it doesn't need to be a movie. You should have really just done a series on a streaming channel about 6, 7, 8 episodes. Something like Twisted Metal on Peacock. Yeah, where you could have made it rated R. You could have found like younger actresses to fit the role. Nothing against Jamie Lee Curtis. She's great in anything she does. But yeah, she's really too old to play Tannis.
Yeah, and like you could have even kept it as a movie, but it should have gone straight to streaming. Like this, I mean,
it wasn't going to do it. So it makes me wonder. I mean, what was the deal with Lionsgate here? It's like, do you make more money off of it being a failure? Some being able to write it off, because that's what I think it is more than it's just something that shouldn't have gotten to release after all the development hell. At a certain point, you have to say, if we can't get this done, let's not shoot it and not waste the money. Okay.
Hey, Marvel, Blade.
All right. So I have a feeling that one of the biggest problems with the Borderlands movie, and the reason why I had so much trouble getting off the ground, is because no one knew how to translate the game itself and how you interact with the game and the characters to on screen. Because if you ever play the Borderlands game, everyone is kind of peppy, everyone is kind of, but you can't have that same, you can't have characters act in a movie like they would in a video game, because in a video game you're like meeting everyone for the first time, even if you've met them 30 times already. In a movie, that's just not how things work, because you forgive that kind of thing in a game. You don't forgive that in a movie. You can't just have people act honestly really weird and oddly for human beings.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't translate. And I feel like too many cooks in the kitchen or whatever. But someone said it needs to be true to the video game, and someone should have said, yeah, but there is this other thing called having them act like people.
Well, what they should have done is said, hey, you know what? This really doesn't translate well. Let's find another property.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat works because the last movie felt in a lot of ways like you were playing the storyline of the game and how the characters talk. But if you really think about, and we did this last year, like the top 10 video game adaptations across the board, for those who had watched it, we pretty much all agreed that it was The Last of Us on HBO. That is the best adaptation. Because of the length of that game, the story you were telling, you got to know all of these characters the same way that you get to know them playing the storyline. Is it just as good as playing the storyline? No, and I don't think anything ever can be, but it was the closest. So
I would also argue, I think you could have done just as well if you had had someone maybe connected with the Mad Max movies.
Sure.
Someone who had been involved in the writing or something, because the Mad Max movies and the Borderland game, they kind of live within at least the same, maybe not the same universe, but
in
the
same energy.
space.
The Last of Us does have the advantage of having the guy who created the game write the story and direct episodes. So yeah.
Right.
But anyway, in a few years we will forget that they made a Borderlands. Somebody decided to try to make a movie and it failed miserably and whatever. It's one of those things. It's like, well, everybody got a paycheck, and you move on to your next project.
Yeah, UA Bowl was going, oh, you guys would rather have me direct this, and we're like, whoa, slow your roll, UA. Okay, yeah. Nobody wants you to direct any video game movie ever again.
All right. Speaking of the other bad movie that completely flopped, it's the other Lionsgate property, and then we're going to get to the last big movie of the summer, The Crow, remake that nobody asked for, and 30 years later, the original Crow movie with Brandon Lee still stands up to anything that we've ever seen. It's still a great movie. I feel like you don't even necessarily need to watch it in 4K, although it's amazing. And correct me, chat, and correct me if I'm wrong, still has probably a various artists still the best sound.
The best.
Yeah. At least top 10. An amazing, amazing movie. And this new one is just like, okay, thank you.
Well, it totally, like, first of all, it spent way too long on their relationship. Okay, which I don't know if anybody else, but it didn't do anything to make me actually feel for Draven anymore. It actually made them less compelling of characters because we saw how absolutely shit they were.
Yeah.
You know, like
sharing drugs at some point.
Yeah. And in the first movie, he's a guitarist, he's a band leader who loves his girl, and they get killed, and now it's him avenging her.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple revenge story, but it works because you saw just enough of the fact that he loved her and that he had to watch her die, and then he was brought back. And it doesn't dive too far into the magic of it because you don't need to. Okay, it's not necessary for the story. Sometimes less is more, like George not telling us where Yoda comes from. I keep going back to that because it's the best decision he ever made in Star Wars. And you just let it play out, and you have compelling villains. And as much as I love Danny Huston, and Danny Huston's going to do a great job, and he's going to make you hate him because he's an excellent actor and he understands the assignment. But I'm sorry, if you've got, Bill Skarsgård or Brandon Lee on the other side, you're going to need your Michael Wincott to be that physical villain, to have that physicality to match them. 60-year-old plus Danny Huston is not bringing the physicality of the role. I'm sorry, folks.
And you know what? That's the thing, too, is the last fight in the original Crow on the rooftop in the rain was amazing.
And by the way, can we just take a half a heartbeat for a Michael Wincott, appreciation here? I mean, he was the villain du jour from about 1988 to about 1998.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if it was the Three Musketeers, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I assume, cousin.
Because it's dull, it'll hurt more, you twit.
And the fact that he's almost a lookalike for Guy Pearce.
Yeah. Somewhere, I think they're secretly related somehow, but
probably. But yeah, so
I confuse them all the time.
But greatest bad guy voice of all time. I mean, he is so good as Rochefort in the Disney's Three Musketeers. Back when Disney made entertainment.
Isn't that a smelly kind of cheese?
Tink. Anyway,
well, I mean, you also had him with Tim Curry, and Tim Curry, of course.
But by the way, I want to point out something. We talk about like big songs from movies, and Lady Gaga did actually come out with a really good song for the Top Gun Maverick song, "Love or Hate Her." But dude, you got Rod Stewart, Bryan Adams, and Sting to do a tribute for that. That song is still awesome. And yes, I still have fond memories because I did make out with somebody at a school dance to that song. Got to second base.
There you go.
I will say this about the Crow movie. Look, I know that Danny Hudson is he is who he is, and Bill Skarsgård is whatever. I'm sorry.
Is it Hudson? I said Houston. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's Houston.
It's just Houston.
Yeah.
Did I? Or Huston? I mean, whatever.
Dude, Angelica's brother.
Yeah.
My deal is like I look at the cast, the original Crow cast. You actually had Ernie Hudson. That's who I was.
Yep.
You had him. Yeah. You had several really big actors in that movie.
You had Bai Ling in that movie.
I'm sorry, this movie has no one that I care about.
By the way, all the deaths in the original Crow still way better. The way that he killed everybody was just incredible.
And why does he have a sword in this movie? Like, is that like a thing? Is that
I don't know. All I'm saying is,
was he a weeb when he died?
I'm glad Jason Momoa didn't actually do this movie and crank out a bad movie that he didn't have to kind of suffer through. I mean, getting paid.
Another one?
Yeah. Actually, his second Aquaman movie was not really bad. It was just a great little buddy
I don't
cop.
know. Wasn't that like six years ago? I'm just talking about the last like 5 movies he's done.
You know what? As much as I hate the Fast and the Furious movies, I like the last one a lot more because he was an awesome villain. So I mean,
Okay.
all right. Well, speaking,
let him be Lobo and move on. Just let him be Lobo and move on.
right. But yeah, this Crow movie, it's utter shit. Didn't need to be made. I don't think you kind of understand what you're doing with it. And no, I don't need characters falling in love over drugs and trying to have this great. It's like, it just, come on.
You know what's been the most entertaining thing about this, though? Have y'all been watching the director of the original, Alex Proyas, just rail on this?
Yeah.
Oh my God. He has been a hoot. I was like, Jesus Christ. Here's
a simple formula for you. This is all you need to stick to. And this is what John Wayne really always understood in pretty much any Western and that, movie that he did. Great action scenes that you're going to be impressed with, a top-notch villain that's absolutely believable, and a good lead actor that exudes that magnetism off the screen of being a good lead actor. And Brandon Lee at that time, breakout role, and that's what's so tragic about his death. Like, you finally, that was your Enter the Dragon. You finally hit that point. Now, and nothing against Rapid Fire. That's a great little kind of 90s action cop movie, and he was great in it. But this was it right here.
This was next level for him. He was beautiful.
Although one of my favorites with his is the one he did with Dolph Lundgren, Showdown at Little Tokyo.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's when Dolph Lundgren defeats like the first group of guys, he's like, it's like a video game. You defeated the first wave, and Dolph Lundgren looks at him and goes, I have moments where you're really an asshole. And he's like, thank you.
I know. But look, a believable villain is all you really need, and Danny Houston is from a physical standpoint. That's all I'm saying. And I just did in Bill Skarsgård. I love him. He was great in John Wick 4. I don't mind you as the Crow. I just don't.
Yeah, I'd like to know why Alex Proyas hasn't gotten more work, because after The Crow, he did Dark City, and then he did I, Robot, and then Gods of Egypt bombed, and then he just hasn't really gotten anything since.
Oh, that's why.
I looked up the director, by the way. The director, Rupert Sanders, of this newest Crow iteration. I know why it failed now, because I'm like looking at his stuff. He did Ghost in the Shell. And he did the Snow White and the Huntsman movie. I gotta say it right because it's almost a bad word. And and then those are like his biggest 3 movies, including and he did like one episode of The Foundation. They literally they have like the shittiest director ever doing this movie.
By the way,
kind of shooting up in the foot though, because didn't he like blow up Kristen Stewart, or whatever the hell is it, Kristen Stewart, and what's his name from Twilight, Robert Pattinson? Like, he started sleeping with her while, like, what's his name, Rupert, what the hell is his name?
Sanders. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, like, he blew their relationship up, and then he became like almost untouchable. Like nobody wanted to work with him after that. I was like, well, gee, look what you just did. So,
by the way, Snow White and the Huntsman will still probably be better than the Snow White movie they're coming out with. So,
but
it goes without saying.
All right.
Well, the controversy around that and the siege and like what's the name?
That's
of the guy?
We can do it. Peter Dinklage. We can do a whole episode just on that movie.
Yeah,
just on Peter Dinklage.
Well, and here's all you need to know about. Here's all you need to know about that movie. Gal Gadot is supposed to be jealous of Rachel Zegler.
Sure,
and that reaction right there is why this movie will fail.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. All right, so this Crow movie, absolute shit. Didn't need to be made. If you really like The Crow, the only thing you ever need to do is go back and watch the original. It's its 30th anniversary.
Yep, that's what I got.
Still stands test time. An incredible movie, and it always will be. All right.
Transfer, so do yourself a solid.
So we're going to get to the other big movie, Alien Romulus. And I know we're going to have some disagreement on some things about this, but I'm going to start off by saying at least Alien finally got back to its roots after the last two movies. And I am not.
Last two. Four.
Look, okay. I'm not even acknowledging the Alien 4 movie or whatever that was just, I mean, I like Sigourney Weaver and she kicked everybody's ass, blah, 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 whatever. And Alien 3 it is what it is kind of a continuation. But if you're saying that this is the best Alien movie since Aliens, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chad, even you can agree with that, right? Wow, really? Really? Still not the best Aliens movie?
Dude, this movie was like a stake in my heart because it's one of my favorite franchises, for better or for worse, even the highs and the lows. And as long as we were waiting on this, and as much promise as it held, and it was just a fart in church for me. I was like, guys, come on. I mean, you okay, all right.
Uninvited to the barbecue.
You held it. Okay, all right. You held it together for about 2/3 of this film, but the third act in this film, it completely collapses on itself. It just completely implodes. Just the flawed logic and the oh shit, really? Just the stuff that just felt shoehorned in there. The callbacks of dialogue. Are we going spoiler free or spoiler?
Remember, they said the thing. They said the thing. Remember, Barry?
Yeah. I was like, no, because you know what I want to talk about is the android in the room.
Okay, so I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that having another version of him and them knowing about the alien and how it connects to the original movie, you know.
It's not the fact of who it was. It's the fact that he looked so ridiculous.
Really?
I think okay. So your problem is
I guess I just didn't
CGI wasn't great.
Okay, it didn't bother me, but
sure. They did a better job on Luke in the final episode of season 2 of Mandalorian than they did on Ian Holm in this.
Okay, disagree, but okay.
You can disagree all you want, but
okay.
It completely took me out. It just completely took me out of it.
I see where you're coming from. The CGI on the face wasn't like crisp, but
awful.
I guess part of the excuse would be he's literally an android who's been like ripped in half, had half his milky gooey stuff drained out of his body, so he's not going to look great. But I think
facial animation was just tacky.
I think the current technology we have probably could have done better.
Yes.
I'm sure there's a YouTuber out there that will fix it in some editing like they did with Luke at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, it's the Portal crew.
These guys that know how to use off-the-shelf software, they can dance circles around these guys that you pay millions for that can make anybody look convincing. He did not.
I got maybe my eyesight's just not as good. Did not bother me at all. I love the connection. I love how they tied that story into the original movie. Okay, knowing about the alien, what they were trying to do, and kind of, leads into Aliens a little bit, even though, it's still going to be another 30 years before they find Ripley.
And, here's my thing. It's like, you're talking about like the shoehorning in of the stuff, and you're right. There's fan service. There's plenty of fan service. But my argument would be, it's like a lot of the same things that they did in that movie, they did in the first Aliens movie and in Aliens 2, as far as like all the same like plot devices and stuff like that. Like they got back, I won't say formula because formula is like a bad word, but I feel like they got back to their roots after straying so far off the reservation.
Prometheus, you're trying to tell this origin story. Where do they really come from? How were they created? And I'm like, I don't really care. It's like you spent so much exposition trying to explain this before you got to the horror part of the movie that I just didn't care. Now, love Michael Fassbender as David. Uh, Alien Covenant, better than Prometheus, but still not like, okay, whatever. I mean, it was still some thrills and it was scary in some parts or whatever. And him as David was like, okay, cool. You've kind of gone along with them and now you're going to go plant bugs somewhere. Whatever. Okay. But to have an actual horror movie where you're having to navigate something to get around aliens to escape, it's a simple formula and you accomplish that. So I'm going to ask Chad this. You hate the Ian Holm thing. Fine. What about David Johnson, who played Andy? Did you like Andy?
Up until Get Away From Her, you bitch. I was tolerant of him. I liked. I guess maybe once he got his upgrade. And I'm like, okay, here we go. It's like, this was something that they kind of telegraphed. I'm like, I remember leaning over to Shannon while we were watching this going, he's going to be a problem. And she's like, what makes you think that? I was like, at some point, he's going to interface from something and he's going to 180 and he's going to be the pain in their ass. He's going to be what causes a lot of shit. He's going to go from this kind of borderline autistic alien android thing to corporate run asshole that's going to get a lot of people killed. And I'm like, it was so visible on the not so distant.
Yeah, it was obvious, but I'm
like, Jesus Christ.
So what?
Okay. First off, I do have a problem. With not being okay with that sort of thing. Because here's the deal. We all see it all the time where we have stories where we're like, yes, we know this is going to happen because
it's predictable.
It is a little bit predictable. So many movies now are trying to cover up those predictable moments. And this has been my biggest gripe, is that they get so dense in their, we're going to try to make it more whatever, so that you don't see the character who's going to be a problem, that they fuck it all up. And I feel like they just went with it with this movie. It's like, look, you know it's going to be a problem. We all know it's going to be a problem. Let's just go for it and let's do it the right way, instead of trying to like cover it up with an hour's worth of bullshit exposition.
I do agree with that. You don't take so long getting to that point. Okay. To me, the biggest flaws with movies these days is pacing and making it concise. Get to the fucking point. Even if you know what's going to happen, even if you are not really completely surprised, but can you be entertained? I was entertained by this movie. I thought it was clever. My favorite scene is literally when they're having to go through that one hallway and all the little aliens and they're just trying to be quiet and they're almost there. It felt like playing one of my favorite games of the last few years, Alien Fireteam Elite, and then just Andy run. I loved him.
That was great. That was great. This had moments of greatness in it. I'm not going to completely piss on this thing.
Okay.
But and I haven't even gotten to my single biggest problem with this film.
Oh my God. I know. And I get where you're going with that too.
Don't regurgitate the ending of Alien Resurrection, which is exactly what you did.
See,
that's what made me really turn on this thing. I was like, I hated that shit when they did it in Alien Resurrection with this alien human hybrid, what the fuck am I looking at thing. And then they do it again with this, but completely reverse the body structure. And I'm like,
all right, I'm going to ask you a question. Tell me an alien story that doesn't involve somehow alien human hybrids. It seems like every major plot device or whatever they're trying to do has always been, even when you make a funny movie like I'm drawing a blank out. Never mind. But it always gets to be some plot device like we're trying to do some kind of hybrid. I mean, that was the whole plot thing of the X-Files. And it still doesn't personally bother me that was the whole secret plan of them trying to create a hybrid or a vaccine to make them immune because aliens are going to colonize and blah, 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 blah. We know when it's going to happen, but does it give you the same leading up to the moment, to those moments? Is it intense? Is it scary? Does it give you good action scenes? That's what as long as it gives me that, I'm satisfied for being entertained.
I was just expecting more than for the boss villain to be Slender Man, basically.
Okay, I can forgive that criticism very easily. Very easily. I mean, you do have a point.
I can't.
No, I'm saying I can.
Okay.
Yo, I almost agree. Like I'm almost there with you. Because I'm there. And I have to admit, I'm a big fanboy. I'm a huge fanboy of all of it. And the ending of Alien Resurrection and the ending of Alien Romulus, totally, it tracks. You're absolutely 100% right. I will say though, this version, if you had to watch the two of these endings, this one was the better one.
It is the better one.
Because the other one was just goofy as shit.
Yeah.
It was just goofy.
Sucking out through a hole in the window this big, yeah.
Yeah, with Sigourney Weaver, just like, my baby.
Yeah. Brendan, are you sitting here like, thank God I didn't go waste money on this movie?
I just didn't have any interest. I've never been a huge Aliens guy. As I've gotten older, I like horror movies less.
Yeah.
It's just not my genre. It's never been my genre. I like the original two Aliens, Alien and Aliens. After that, like everything's been and the only sci-fi horror movie of the last 30 years that I've really went, wow, that was a freaking amazing movie, was Event Horizon.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, such a good movie.
Yeah, and that movie, I was like, all right, because it was, it had some gory parts, but it had a lot of Hitchcockian, suspense themes, and the sci-fi aspects of it were really cool, and so it had just enough humor and just enough levity to break the tension. Like, hey, you want something hot and black in you? No, well, how about some coffee? So
no,
it was, but yeah, so it's just not my genre. That's all it is.
So Alien Romulus, I think as long as you continue to get close to the first two Alien movies in its formula and make them entertaining enough, that's all you really need to do. Nothing's going to top those first two movies. You're never going to make anything better. Okay.
I mean, honestly, you could have taken the plot line from Alien Isolation and made that into a film where Ripley's daughter goes looking for her.
Oh, you know what? That
been a film.
No,
if you had just shown what happened to Hadley's Hope on LV-426 that got the Marines brought out to them in the first place on Aliens, which is what I thought this movie was setting itself up to do.
Yeah.
When they were looking at the colony, I'm like, is this Hadley's Hope? Is this LV-426 before everything goes to shit? And I thought that's where this was all leading to. And you would have completely had me on board with that. But
if you know what? And I think that's a great storyline. I think if you get to that point where even though it's going to happen, just the suspense of will they get a distress signal off? Okay. Maybe one survives just enough before they're implanted. They get that distress signal and you kind of cut to, Newt surviving and all that. That will lead into
parents like from the edited scene from the director's cut of them coming back with one of them having it, with the dad having it on his face and shit, and the mom calling and all that shit, and Newt screaming hysterically.
Yeah. No, I mean there's still incredible stories to tell. But my point is there's a formula. There's a formula that we expect. This movie got closer than any of the movies we've had since Aliens to that formula, and that's why for me it's entertaining enough that I can ignore certain things. And I'm just not going to gripe that, my God, you're not making the perfect movies. Like, I'm a writer. I know that the only thing that's truly going to make me happy with a story is to create my own, where I'm attached to it. I just hope that I get something that's so good that, like, wow, that completely shocked me how good it is. In the last 5 years, that one movie has been Top Gun Maverick. I was like, there's no way that movie should have been this fucking good. And somehow they made it. Even when Brendan came up with that video that the final scene was just the Death Star running. It's the two scenes side by side. It's like, I don't fucking care.
I didn't care either. I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, if you're going to rip off from the best.
From the best.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But look at me. I did not go into this movie wanting to hate it. I didn't want to hate it. I wanted to love it because I love the Alien franchise so much. And I figured that my wife is going to be a harder sell than I was. And you know, when I looked over at her, she's basically just drumming her fingers on her kneecap, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm there. I'm there with you too. I was like, this thing could end at any minute, and I'd be happy because it was just such a disappointment to me because
it's just amazing to me. I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get it. And the reason I don't get it is because, like, so there are 8 movies in this franchise. And, you know, so you've got Alien. I'm not going to talk about the first 2. We all know the first 2 were gold, right? The third one, okay. The fourth one, Alien Resurrection. Then you've got the 2 Alien versus Predator BS movies, okay?
I'm going to make that.
And then you've got The Covenant and you've got Prometheus. As a fan, I'm looking at all these movies and I'm just like, oh my God, how many times do I have to be just betrayed first off? Because literally betrayed. Like, you fall in love with the first 2 movies. And the third one is like, it was like an alien mask put on a different prison movie. Okay, fine, whatever. The fourth movie, something really freaking goofy. Okay, then you get the 2 Alien vs. Predator movies, which literally cash grab. And then finally we get Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott's back. He's going to bring us back into the fold, right? No, he gives us Prometheus and Covenant, which, I'm sorry, dog water. Both of them. I'm sorry if you like them. They're dog water.
No, I hadn't watched that movie since Brendan did an 8 a.m. press screening on a Saturday for a night of drinking.
And for all the Ridley Scott fans out there,
complain that we're not professionals.
Don't get it.
We did that.
Hungover, watching 3D and watching that movie.
Yes,
I would puke not having
lunch at IHOP was a lot better.
Who did you?
That movie.
God. And then, you know, Ridley Scott is, I'm sorry, he's just not, in my opinion, he's not really a good filmmaker.
Oh, he's not that man anymore. He hasn't been in a long time.
I mean, he's just not. Raised by Wolves. If you've seen that show, I'm sorry, dog water.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I actually enjoyed it, but that's just me. Everybody's with it. All right. So Alien Romulus was still one of my favorite summer blockbusters, despite, you know, minor things or whatever. I still gave it an 8 out of 10 personally. Loved it. We'll watch it again. Jimmy, how about you?
I gave it a 10 out of 10. I mean, look, I know I'm a total fanboy. I know some of you don't like, you know, giving movies 10s. Don't give a shit. That movie made me feel good inside again for this franchise. I have hope that these movies will be good.
Hey, Chad, let me translate that for you. That movie to him gave him the same feeling as if you're listening to Purple Rain live.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I mean,
I get it.
You should have seen me sitting next to Marcus watching the damn film. I'm like up in my seat, just like total fanboy.
We all have those fanboy moments. All right. So for the complete opposite, what grade would you give that movie, Chad?
Okay, listen.
I'm having fun at the debate here.
This is coming from a guy who I saw the original in theaters when I was 9-10 years old in 1979. And it terrified the shit out of me. And I remember coming home that night and I had to put a Bible under my pillow because it scared the living shit out of me. And I remember walking through the door and my mom was actually watching Rosemary's Baby. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm just going
like you do.
I'm barricading the door and shit, you know, and I'm like, but I was so in love with the world that Dan O'Bannon and Ridley Scott created with this thing. And saw Aliens opening weekend in 80s, and I was just as blown away. I saw Alien 3 the day before my first marriage, my first wedding. That's what we saw the night before I got married, the first time. So I've seen every one of these things theatrically, and it's just been like diminish, 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 diminish. And like I told you, I came in here with wide-eyed optimism. I'm like, God, please let this movie be great. Please let this movie be great. And then we got Alien: The Dial of Destiny.
Wow, really?
And I mean, love it all you want to, bro. I'm happy for
No,
you.
no. What I don't
It
get
gave you
is the
what you
fact
want.
that the bar. You say the bar is so low, and still this movie still slid under it.
Yeah.
That's amazingly. That's like you said, the complete opposite of my fanboyness. That's like almost like hating just because it needs to be hated type thing.
No, not
Good
at all. Not
God.
at all. I'm not that.
Good
That is not how I'm
God.
wired. Marcus knows me better than that. That is not how
I don't know.
How I view things. But Marcus, you can attest for me. That's
He
not
is right. He is right. Yes.
that's not who I am. That is not at all who I am. I wanted to love this movie. I didn't want. I thought I made that very clear. I didn't go into this wanting to hate on it. I don't want to hate on this movie, but it just did not give me. It gave me the
All
opposite
right.
of Deadpool Wolverine.
Well, what grade would you give it?
I'm being generous, giving it a 6.
Wow, I thought you were going to give it a 4 the way you were going up, but
Well, again, the first 2/3 of it were fine, but it just went
okay.
complete shit.
All right.
Actually,
All right.
the 6 doesn't bother me nearly as bad as what I thought you were going to give it.
I know. Being we'll take the generous grade. All right. So here's what we're going to do. 2 podcasts talk about summer blockbusters. You know, we've had Fall Guy, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Twisters, Deadpool, and Wolverine. We've had some really crappy movies, Borderlands and The Crow. We've had Alien Romulus, stuff like that. So my first question is this. It's probably an obvious answer. So that's why I'm going to ask 2 questions. So we'll get the first one out of the way. What do you guys feel like is the best movie of the summer? Let me put it this way. Do we all agree that Deadpool Wolverine is probably the best of the summer?
Although surprisingly, it's not the most. Yes, but surprisingly, it's not the most successful monetarily. That was Inside Out 2, believe it or not.
Oh,
Yay,
Inside Out 2
Disney had a
has
win!
surpassed everything.
Yeah, Disney did a family movie that didn't have a bunch of messaging and preachiness in it, and it made $1.5 billion. We're all shocked.
Wow.
It is now the highest grossing animated film of all time. And
beating all the
surpassed
Toy
last
Stories.
Lion King.
Yeah. Yep,
I feel like
1.6 million, something
I
like
feel
that.
like I need to watch the first one and the second one now. But
Actually, look, as a guy with 3 kids, I'm going to tell you, they're pretty good.
Yeah,
They just are. They're good.
I've just had no reason to watch them, but all right, cool. All right.
They are good.
So we all agree that the best movie of the summer has been Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yes.
All right. So here's the second question. What do you consider, out of all the movies, what has been the second best movie? Brendan, I'm going to start with you.
Do I have to pick one?
Well, you can pick 2. I mean,
No, I was saying I haven't really seen much that has done anything for me outside of Deadpool and Wolverine. So
wow. Okay.
I come back to me. Give me a second. Let me kind of read.
Google movies so you can make a decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
There would be no.
Brendan's like, yeah, you should really go back to the movies and watch movies. Movies are great. I just haven't seen everything, but they're great. Yeah, you're not going to be the poster child here for the show to go see movies.
Oh, actually, all right. Yes. Okay. All right. I'd forgotten I went to see this, but I did enjoy it. It was a good flick. I'm going to give it to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay. Chad, how about you?
God. It's kind of a tight 3-way race between Kingdom, Twisters, and Inside Out 2. I enjoyed all 3 of those immensely. But I guess Twisters, I might have to kind of give the edge to because I wasn't expecting it to be worth a shit, and it over delivered in my estimation.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Jimmy, how about you?
I mean, come on. Obviously, you know which one I like. I like Alien, but if we're going to talk about strictly like summer blockbusters, One, I wouldn't count Pixar as a summer blockbuster. Just it's not the blockbuster format. But
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
yeah, no, it's
What?
probably. I mean, if I couldn't choose Alien, I would probably choose Pixar. Honestly,
Okay. I think that's a good dad answer.
it is. I mean,
That's
no,
the one that
I'm
has
the
the
dad
kids
of
on this
3.
show.
I'm a dad
You
of a
know?
30-year-old, and I still watch those without my child. I just
Look,
Well,
I
no,
just
I
rewatched the
know
movie
you're a
Turning.
dad, but I mean, but you don't have three kids at the house.
no, but I would go see that with or without them.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
the allure that Pixar has.
Oh,
on
I feel like I'm really missing out. I haven't even seen the last Toy Story movie, so
Eh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
don't think-
just put on the movie Turning Red for the 1,000th time yesterday, and no one even asked me to. And
Okay, wow.
yeah,
Again, I
'cause
feel like that's
yeah.
what a dad
Oh,
should say.
Jimmy, back me up on this. Tell me that you don't think for 1 second, unless you've already seen it and you just haven't said anything about it, Marcus. Have you ever seen Onward?
Oh yeah, 100%.
No, Marcus, have you seen Onward?
No.
Do yourself a solid.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a Pixar movie.
No, no.
It's like, you don't think he'd like it, Jim?
no. I think he's gonna love it. But it's
I
a
do too.
90s. I can't believe you haven't seen it. It's a 90s movie that's gonna change your view on and make you cry.
90s?
Isn't Onward the 90s? Didn't it come out in the 90s?
Oh,
Came out in 2020.
Onward was the one that, Onward was the one that came out right at the beginning of the
I'm sorry. I was thinking of Homeward Bound, but no,
Oh,
Onward. actually,
No, I don't watch Homeward Bound. I read the book when I was a kid, but it's a
Onward.
Yeah,
No,
you're
if
too-
you're-
I
if you're a
understand.
D-
I'm
if
saying
you're
I
a
know the
D&D
movie
nerd.
Homeward Bound,
No.
but I don't watch that movie because it's a dog movie, and I cry
Yeah.
at dog movies or whatever.
No. He's right. Onward. If you are a gamer, if you're a nerd, you're gonna like Onward. It's done
I don't
so
even
well.
remember this came out in 2020.
Yeah.
The two leads were Tom Holland and Chris Pratt
Mhm.
playing
Yeah.
brothers that were trying to reunite with their dad in basically a D&D world.
God.
Oh no!
Okay, I for some reason I have forgotten about this movie. So
It came out right at the beginning of the pandemic. It came out
the
March
pandemic
6th.
really screwed that movie over.
Okay,
It
well I
it
will
was
go
really
back.
good.
All right, so here's my final answer on what I consider the second best movie, and it's almost kind of a tie, but this one really edges it for me. It is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Again, I didn't know if that was going to be good. I'm such a huge fan of Planet of the Apes. I really, really enjoyed it. And I watched it again the other day. Loved it just the same. I want them to tell more stories, even if the timeline is kind of convoluted between all the movies. For whatever reason, that gets me. That's me. That's the one where I am a true fanboy.
Yeah,
But
believe me, that was a tough call for me because I want to give a lot of edge to that one too because I love that franchise.
But here's the thing. Here is the one movie that I would literally put right behind it because it completely shocked me behind how good it is. Fall Guy. That movie, I had no reason to be good, funny, or anything like that. Just a cash grab, type thing. And it worked on all of I was thoroughly entertained by the Fall Guy. And I was talking with Allison, our assistant editor, who they watched the extended edition on Peacock, and she's like, I honestly think this movie was really made for our generation, for people who remember the original show, to people who love Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, and just a fun action movie with a good villain, and just worked on so many levels. So
I had to drag my wife to see that movie. She was not interested in it at all. In fact, I told her what movie it was, and she was like, ugh, really? She watched it. It's her favorite movie of the year.
yeah,
100%. She
that was
loves
a movie
it.
that surprised me. I love it. I love Alien Romulus, but Chad and I talked about Twisters, and for everybody, you can go back and hear us talk about that movie afterwards. It just didn't do it for me like I thought it would. It just did not exceed my expectations. I still love the original better. I do want a sequel. I think you can tell more stories with this crew, but it was very middle of the road for me. So
Okay. So look,
But
I didn't watch it. but there are things that I see in the trailers and stuff like that that make me not want to watch it. So tell me if this is as glaring in the actual movie as it is in the trailers. Okay. When I watch the trailers, there are all these like, fun CGI, whatever, of like using the new technology to basically do exactly what was done in the first movie. Like now we have drones, and now we have this, and now we have that, and they play up a lot of the, it's like we have this technology, let's just superimpose it because it looks cool type thing. And that just made me go like, ugh, a little bit. Like it made me retch. Was that as glaring in the movie as it looked in the trailers?
To a point. I mean, it's cool what they do with the newer technology, but there's a great nod to the original with Dorothy, so to speak.
Okay.
I will admit, shooting fireworks in the middle of a tornado was kind of cool, and I love Glenn Powell's truck,
Okay.
especially
Like
the
him as-
scene where she steals the truck. But I don't know, it just didn't do enough for me compared to everything else. So, all right, we're gonna wrap this up, but yeah, for Summer Blockbusters of 2024, Deadpool and Wolverine. It won. It is hands down the best movie. It is the Top Gun Maverick of the year. So I can't wait to watch it again. That's a movie that I feel like you will never get tired of if you just watch it 10 or 12 times. So all right. Next time we're back, we will get into some of the movies that are starting to come out, like Beetlejuice, which we're very excited for. And yes, at the time of the recording, we have seen it, but we're not going to talk about it on this show. You'll just have to come back and hear our thoughts about it down the road. And then we're starting to get into fall movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And so there we go. All right, everybody. It is time to finally say goodbye, and we'll be back in a few weeks.
Take care,
Bye, everybody.
Twisters. Not necessarily a direct sequel to the movie Twister, but another tornado disaster movie with, interesting characters. And I have to admit, there was, some little nods to Bill Paxton, God rest his soul, and stuff like that. So I've been talking with friends. I've got a good friend who's in the Navy who's she's taking a little leave right now, and then she's got to go do another round of carrier duty. And we were talking about Twister because that was one of her favorite movies. And she's like, I got to go see this before I ship out. Is it as good as the original? I'm going to immediately answer the question that no, I do not think it's as good as the original. I like the first one better, but I do like this movie. And I think it's a good movie to see in the theater. It's worth it seeing on the big screen. How about you, Chad?
I actually prefer this one.
Really?
Much to my surprise, I actually prefer this one because
Wow. Okay. A little debate going to happen here.
Well, I mean, and I don't think we're going to be at odds with each other on it or anything like that. It's just that I think the pacing on this was a little bit better. It seemed to move a little bit quicker. I like the fact that you're kind of in the midst of a role reversal here.
Yeah.
To where the team that you're following was basically the equivalent of Carrie Elwes's team in the original, in the team that our hero was in, that she was a part of this of this group, because
the kind of rebellious tornado crew is really Glenn Powell's.
It's Glenn Powell's tornado, whatever the hell they were.
Tornado Wranglers, which I do love the name.
I do too. I love it. I love the logo, the Longhorns with the freaking twister wrap.
I know.
That's kick ass. That's
I
kick
know.
ass.
I might actually have to get that and make a T-shirt, because that was actually my favorite line when they were doing like the kind of the after credit scenes. I like when she looks at him. It's like, do I get my face on a T-shirt now?
I mean, they had some good chemistry. It was kind of surprising. I was like, I didn't know that this was going to work, because it seemed like it was going to be a forced chemistry experiment. But did you notice the outfit that she had on from the rodeo on was the exact outfit Helen Hunt was wearing in the original?
Yeah, yeah. They the tank top stuff. Yeah, just yeah. Um,
And the guy that was complaining in the motel right before it got wiped out, that was Paxton's kid.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it was a great little cameo. Who I think his band's first album is about to hit. Um, you know, I didn't rate it very high. I gave it a 6 because I just, for me, as much as I like the characters, I love the kookiness of the characters in the original. You know, them fighting over how to roll the maps. Philip Seymour Hoffman's character was just so bizarre and
He
funny.
damn near stole that movie. Every scene he was in, you could tell that this guy, although it was cut tragically short, had an incredibly bright future in front of him.
Yeah, yeah.
He managed to build an astonishing career in a very short period of time, and I wish he was still here.
Yeah, I agree.
As I wish Paxton was too.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you get to know all of those characters a lot more in the original versus the Tornado Wranglers, which are just kind of there. And I mean, they're funny and all that. But that's also why I think you need a sequel. I think you could do 2 or 3 of these movies and be fine. And, you know, because we never really got a sequel to Twister, you know, how they were going to use the new data to track and, you know, deal with tragedies and stuff like that. And I think that's a real shame.
And they tried like hell. They tried like hell. Paxton tried like hell, like all the way up until his death. He was still trying to get a sequel off the ground.
I know.
That was like his pet project. Like he wanted to do that more than just about anything else, and it just never came together.
Yeah. One of my biggest complaints is I feel like you could have made this a direct sequel. Mara Tierney, she was great as the mother, but I'm like, you couldn't have that be Helen Hunt. You can't have her be Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton, you know, daughter, and really pay tribute to why, you know, he died and why they moved, you know, they're in Oklahoma, that kind of thing. I think that's one of my biggest complaints is that's a missed opportunity of having a direct sequel.
That could have been the Bill Paxton Iceman from Maverick moment, kind of.
Exactly. Exactly.
There, but they could have had his picture on the wall, and you know,
yeah,
talk to me, Dad, kind of, talk to me, that kind of moment,
Well, but here's the thing: if you do end up having a sequel, you know, then I think you've at least got to have Helen Hunt, and she has to meet these characters who have done it before. Because I mean, really, the only tribute that you have is they have one of the Dorothys that
Dorothy 4.
Yeah, they got as scrap and kind of put it together. And the opening scene's great. I mean, you do it from an action standpoint, it all works and it's intense. And I love
pretty hard
Wrangler truck, but I love the original. It was one of my favorite movies of the 90s. And I remember going to the theater to see it before I left for college. You know, that was a fun summer. Summer of 96, 3 best movies that summer. Twister, Mission Impossible 1, and Independence Day.
That was 96? Independence Day was 96?
Those were all 96 movies.
I think Independence Day was 97.
Yeah, that is 1996.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, that was like, man, that was like the last, like, well, not really a midnight movie, but like late movie that all of my friends, we did that, and then like couple of weeks later, we all went to Lollapalooza '96. And everybody left for college and the Navy and stuff like that.
See, like your 96 was my 89.
Yeah.
Because literally, I went into the Navy. I shipped out from MEPS June 26th of 1989, 3 days after Batman.
Okay.
I managed to see that movie 5 times in 3 days before I left.
Before you left for the Navy?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Think about what the summer of '89 was. You had Last Crusade,
it's true.
Batman.
Yeah.
You had Lethal Weapon 2.
Yes.
I mean, it was Roadhouse. I mean,
that is an '89 movie. Yeah.
Oh, that the same weekend. I think I saw Batman and then snuck in and saw Roadhouse.
Hey, Field of Dreams is '89 for your baseball fixation. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, '89 was my beast year right before I shipped off to the Navy. So
Well,
that,
like I said,
you and I are kind of have a similar
well,
experience.
so you feel like this is a little bit better than the original. Why do you feel it's better?
Well, we've come a long way visually. It just some of the especially with drone technology,
Right.
with some of the camera work. I mean, it was like you really did feel like you were in the eye of the storm, literally, so to speak. Um, uh, I don't know if it was more of the filmmaking and film presentation technology that just made it a more enriching experience for me. And I'm kind of with you. I prefer the characters of the first one, but I prefer the pacing and I guess the whole presentation of this one just a little bit more over the original.
That's interesting. I mean, because one of the things I love about the original is I love the fact that Jamie Gertz's character is a sex therapist, and she's having these conversations while they're chasing tornadoes. She did not marry you for your penis.
She didn't marry your penis.
Her draw.
She did get a little irritating after a while. She did get kind of grating after a
while. I get it, but I also feel like it's a great nod of going back and visiting family and reconnecting, just like they had in the original, where they're all grabbing steak and eggs, and he shows up at her mom's place and they have barbecue, and he sees her homemade lab and stuff. There was obviously great chemistry, right? And Glenn Powell has proven himself to be a good leading man.
You know what? We were talking about how Tom Cruise is ironically, since he did co-star with him in Maverick, I think Glenn Powell is on his way to being that next guy, because he's what is Running Man his next film or the film after his next film?
I'm not exactly sure, but I know it's coming up, and I am very intrigued with him in Running Man.
As am I. But I mean, like you talk about ticking off the boxes. You've done a Tom Cruise sequel. You've now done the Twister sequel, and you're about to remake a Schwarzenegger film. I hope it works out better for him than it did for Colin Farrell in Total Recall.
And I don't necessarily hate that movie, but it just didn't feel like the original. That was my complaint. Like, they tried to take themselves too seriously.
Right.
Where there's kind of a lot of, comedy. The three-breasted alien, it's a good off-the-wall comedy bit. That makes the film a little bit more lighthearted, with what you're dealing with.
Right.
But Glenn Powell has done Hitman, which has been one of my favorite movies this year on Netflix. Just to watch him through all the various disguises he does, as infiltrating as the cop undercover, catching people. I thought that was a great movie. And I love the fact that he has, done bigger interviews, and his Rich Eisen interview was really interesting, talking about he's on the list now. He gets the Tom Cruise cake every year. He had the little bit part of playing John Glenn in the Hidden Objects movie.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, about the black women at NASA and the mathematician Katherine Johnson. Yeah, he's the plays John Glenn, and who made a really great John Glenn. He very much felt like that.
Wait,
Ed Harris.
We talking about Hidden Figures?
Hidden Figures. What am I saying?
What do you call it? You said hidden objects. Like,
hidden objects in space. I don't know.
Okay.
Hidden Figures, which is a great movie. That's one of the best movies you can watch on Disney Plus. Great cast, the one with Kevin Costner, but he plays John Glenn kind of the same way Ed Harris did in The Right Stuff.
Damn, I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah, and don't forget, one of his very first movies, Denzel Washington and The Great Debaters.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I saw that. I saw that was brought up.
Yeah, and he tells the story that, great mentorship by Denzel Washington, that it was like he didn't know if he really wanted to go out or if he just wanted to be kind of a local actor out of Boston. And was Denzel, if you want to be bigger than local, you have to go out and you have to go to LA. You have to do that. and that's what Denzel did.
Mm-hmm.
Was a couple of bit parts here and there until he got the Carbon Copy movie, and then he got Saint Elsewhere, and by that, he was just off and rolling after that. So that's where Glenn Powell is, and he really makes this movie in a lot of ways. So here's one of the things I like about him. You know how sometimes you come across actors playing too over the top as a Texas actor or a cowboy?
Right.
He's natural at it.
Yeah. Nothing about it seems hokey or cliched or anything like that. I was afraid he was going to be more hangmanish, a la Maverick in this, and he wasn't. He was very likable. He was relatable.
Right.
You could definitely tell he was an adrenaline junkie. But I like the way he, his instincts were really, really sharp on shit, and he's like, yeah, I know what you say you're gonna do, but I know what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Like, I know you're telling me to go this way, but I know where you're going, and I know why.
Sometimes subtle is always better.
Mm-hmm.
Talking with 4E Smith when we were interviewing the cast for Ride at the Dallas Film Festival, and I gave him a compliment. It's like, he's so natural as a cowboy because that's who he is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't think you really put much. I think you just do it. And one of the things he kind of told me off the interview is, Chaz probably, sorry, thinking of the wrong actor. Cole Hauser is a great actor, but he's played, Boston. He's played bad guys. He's played the racist soldier in, Heart's War. But there's a subtlety to his acting until he has to get violent with the Rip character, because he's not like, he's not a Texan or a cow, whatever. That's what Glenn Powell does in this role. He's not so over the top that you think of him as a buffoon.
Yeah.
So anyway, from an action standpoint, do you feel like the scenes are better in this one compared to the 1996 movie?
Yeah, I do, because it seemed like there were more of them, and I think they were better constructed.
Yeah,
just like the sense of peril felt a little bit more authentic in this one than it did in the original.
Well, and maybe that's the difference between being able to do more, with this movie 25, with the technology 25 years later. I mean, they still do an incredible job with the 1996 movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can definitely feel like they see how they've come a long way. But do you feel like to get the full effect of this movie, it needs to be seen on a big screen?
Hell yes. Hell yes.
That's kind of a rhetorical question, but
if you're not at least doing it in Dolby Cinema, then you're cheating yourself.
Yeah, see, I was kind of disappointed at our press screening. We didn't get to do it like in IMAX or anything. Like we did the Civil War movie in IMAX back in March, which was an incredible experience, especially when they are marching through Washington, D.C. up to the White House. And it feels like a Call of Duty game. So I was like, but we don't get to do Twisters. It feels like this should be in that theater.
One of my coworkers, she went and saw it, and she said she went to Cinemark and did the D-Box experience, which is something I've never done. And,
no, that's pretty incredible.
And she said about 10 minutes to go, she had to shut it off. She goes, I was actually getting sick. She goes, so much motion going on. She goes, I had to turn it off.
Yeah,
it got too intense. I'm like, wow, that's saying something.
I love a good movie experience like an IMAX where it's like really, really like the last Mission Impossible movie was great. And Top Gun Maverick at the IMAX theater, absolutely. That's the way. I'm so proud of Paramount by saying, no, we need this theater. This is how people are going to see Top Gun Maverick. But all the motion going like that's why you have in video games. If you have a problem a history of seizures, you should not play this game. Type thing. So that might be a little overkill, but I can imagine the experience in a Twister or disaster movie. That's interesting.
That would probably be the best way to do it. Like, I think the ideal situation. Did you ever get to try out? I don't even know if they're still around anymore because it's been several years. The last Star Wars arcade game that they did that really impressed me was something called a Battle Pod.
Yeah.
Where like when you take off out of the hangar, they've got fans below the console that the wind hits you in the face as you're taking off.
Free Play had one of those for a while up here in yeah. You can still find those. Yeah, those things are awesome.
Can you imagine a movie like Twister or Maverick?
Right.
Jeez. Nope, I can't. I got to do it I got to do it in like 20-minute segments. I can't do the whole thing.
Right.
It's too real.
Yeah, for someone who, when he was 18 and his first year at college, thought it would be cool to go with a tornado chasing group because Twisters came out that year.
Out of your mind.
Yeah, it is very real, very, very intense, and I'm good. I've had that experience. I don't need to do it again. I don't need that adrenaline anymore.
Yeah, I've got a crippling fear of heights, and one of the most difficult press screenings that I ever sat through was the IMAX press screening of The Walk.
Ooh.
Oh, Jesus.
No. I'm with you on that. I had that same.
That's the what's his his name? Gordon Levitt, where he's the
he's the Frenchman that does the thing from the trade center. Yeah. No, dude,
nope.
I have experienced. There are certain video games where I've had that experience where I've had to like take a step back for a little bit, sitting on my couch, like, okay, this is getting a little like some of like the Last of Us Part 2. There are some scenes towards the end of that game, like with Abby's story, that you're like, ooh, okay, I'm getting sick just watching this on a yeah.
Like that Mirror's Edge. You were never gonna get me to play. Never in 100 years. Hell, there are times I struggle playing Assassin's Creed when you have to crawl up on the tiniest little outcropping.
Right.
Swan dive into the hay. I'm like, nah.
I love the fact that theaters are trying to give you like the ultimate experience, but you don't have to make it so real that I get sick.
I don't know. I mean, because to think about, we haven't had numbers like this in a long time since before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So maybe they do. Maybe they are having to really push the envelope to bring people back in with something that is so unique and so, so thrilling and adrenaline pumping that they got to give you a lot more than what we were accustomed to. I mean,
okay.
They're charging for movie tickets. They better give you a lot of bang for your buck now.
I will say this: I was happy to pay $16 to go see Deadpool Wolverine. Normally, I'd be like, $16. What's going on here?
Yeah, you want to take me to dinner before you screw me? I don't think so. You're gonna make me put on a dress.
And you wonder why people sneak in their lunch. Like, oh, believe me, with the screening I went to of Deadpool, yeah, it was all around lunchtime, and people lights go out are like unwrapping sandwiches, and we did buy
the popcorn, but we brought our own chocolate. So
yeah. So I agree about this movie being seen on the big screen. And I hope it keeps a theater run for a little while because it definitely is a good matinee. More than anything else.
Well, any real high quality premium format screens that it would have been in pretty much got taken up by this guy.
Yeah, I know.
So you probably already missed your window. If you haven't seen Twister in like Dolby Cinema or IMAX, you probably aren't going to have a chance to now that he's out.
True, maybe not. But you know what? I mean, it's not the best movie of the summer, but it's definitely a good one. And I feel like that we are kind of coming back with summer blockbusters that are not so over the top and ridiculous. Like last year, I loved Mission Impossible. It was great. But Fast and the Furious, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, we're not done with these movies yet.
I'm so out on that. I've never watched one of those movies.
Right.
I've never had any interest in it.
But I mean, if you think about three great, like, fun so far action movies between Fall Guy, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Twister, those are three great summer popcorn movies. And we haven't even gotten to Alien Romulus yet, which looks amazing.
It does to me.
Yeah. I mean, getting, kind of going back to the old school horror survival intensity of the original one. So
it's kind of annoying when I hear people say, but Ridley didn't direct this one. I'm like, he directed the last two, and they really weren't all that impressive.
I don't hate the last two. I mean, I don't, but
I'm not saying that, but it's no 79 Alien. Let's put it that way.
No, it's not that, and it's not Aliens.
No, and I don't think anything.
I don't. I agree. So, but anyway, what grade did you give Twister? Or Twister?
I'll give it one grade higher than you gave it. I'll give it a 7.
I mean,
it's crazy with it. Again, is it something I would go back? I've seen it. I don't really feel the need to pay to go see it again in a premium format. I don't think I could even if I wanted to. But I enjoyed it, but it's I don't think it's something that I would go back to over and over and see in the theater. Deadpool Wolverine, on the other hand, I would. But
oh God, no, I agree with you. But it's a fun, good summer popcorn movie that
I don't regret the money that I spent.
Right, definitely deserves a sequel, and I hope we get them again. Now I'm going to comment on one thing because Allison and I, our assistant editor, were talking about this. The screen kiss that got cut, how Spielberg, inserted his influence and whatnot. I don't think it's so controversial that they didn't have a kiss, because I love the idea that he drills his truck into the concrete and he goes after her.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's important. But if you have the kiss like right there, just kind of subtle, not everything has to be John Wayne in the Wind with Maureen O'Hara and the Quiet Man and pulling her back and planting one on her. But for anybody that's upset, think about it in terms. Part of it is going after her. And all the after credit scenes are there. You don't need to cram in a gratuitous sex scene or anything. And the original one was very subtle. They didn't do it until the very end when the two characters got back together.
Right.
So sometimes just going back after someone that you're in love with is good enough.
And
but
yeah, I don't even think it's a matter of establishing that they are now romantically entangled with each other. I think they just, is it implied kinda that they're an item now, or is it more or less, I don't want you to go because I think we're onto something here.
Yeah.
Just as a couple, but as researchers, as some of the top minds in our field,
right.
And I think we still have work to do here.
Yeah.
And
either way is a good story. I mean,
yeah.
But
the after credit scene, did it look like they were a couple to you, or did it look like they were just working in the field?
I think they were getting there. But I do love the scene where she runs off with the truck. She basically steals the truck.
Mm-hmm.
While they're rescuing people out of the theater. The truck is its own character. It's pretty badass. Yeah. Now I don't know if I would ever want to get as close to a tornado where I shoot fireworks up its ass, but that was actually kind of cool.
And were you pretty much counting on, once you saw they were watching Frankenstein, you knew that whenever that tornado hit that theater, it was going to be whenever he says, "It's alive! It's alive!"
I know.
There's no. I turned to Shannon and I said, "I swear to God, that's going to happen. That's going to happen."
Now, if you really wanted to pay tribute, the movie you should have been watching in the theater was the original Twister movie. Maybe that's a little too on the nose, but however, or you know what? What's the one? Or God, if you really want to do it right, you could have just, Wizard of Oz.
Well, see, in the original Twister, they were watching The Shining.
Yeah, that's right. That was at the theater.
And I'm trying to remember the other film that was on the marquee, because given the fact that both of these films, both Twister and Twisters, were co-productions of Warner Brothers and Universal,
Yeah.
the movies worked in like classic films from both studios. And I can't what they were saying was on the marquee in Twisters. It was Frankenstein and something else. So I'm assuming it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a Universal film, so.
But I mean, you had one was a Universal film on the marquee in Twister, and the other one was a Warner Brothers film because was Shining Warner Brothers production, right?
Believe so. Yeah.
But Psycho was clearly a Universal.
Right.
They just weren't showing it. Then you just saw it on the marquee. I'm trying to remember what else was on the marquee in Twisters.
Well, I mean, it's a great nod to, classic movies and everything.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in Kansas and that movie was hitting like video or whatever, some of there was a drive-by theater not too far from where I was going to college, about an hour away, that was still showing it like in its last run, going into the fall, and it got hit by a tornado. Twister. It's like, come on, irony.
Yeah.
But anyway, no.
Yeah, no drive-in that happened to him. Back when.
Still a great movie. I hope you get a chance to see it before it's completely out of the theater, and hopefully we will get a sequel or two out of this because you've got some great characters, and I'd like to see more out of the Tornado Wranglers. Yeah. I mean, it's a great name, and I admit I do kind of want a T-shirt with her face on it too. The scene where he gives the T-shirt to the mom, and she just kind of looks, which I thought is funny. Daisy Edgar Jones has turned out to be one of my favorite younger actresses. She has done some incredible things. She was good in, Where the Crawdads Sing. That was a good movie. I think that's on Netflix right now. And if you have not had a chance to watch it, with Andrew Garfield, Under the Banner of Heaven. Great.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, great story about, Mormons going way overboard with the teachings and murder, and just she has done some incredible things. So, all right, well, that's it. Not as good as Deadpool and Wolverine, but still a good movie. And we'll be back reviewing some more movies as we finish out the summer. So thanks a lot. We will be back, everyone.